When you see photos like these, what feeling do they evoke? How many times have you seen images like these and said, or thought, I could never take a photo like that? Well, the truth is that if you desire to, that you absolutely can. The hardest step, honestly, is just switching the DSLR to manual, because I know it's intimidating. I've been shooting photography for 6 years at this point. I received my photography certificate from Guilford Technical Community College while I was completing the graphic design program. Since then, I've done a few weddings. I've done some baby photos, promotional photos for music artists, and also some travel photos. Photography has actually become a passion of mine, and outdoor photography specifically. There are a lot of different benefits to why I like shooting outside rather than a controlled environment. One being just the naturalness of it, and then also just that little bit of element of not being in control and having to capture what is there. Now, granted, you do always have to put the photos that you take in manual into a post-production, which we will talk about in a moment. And that post-production generally makes the photo. Because at the end of the day, as Ansel Adams once said, you don't take a photograph, you make it. So I'm gonna teach you the basic elements of being able to start to make your photo. Today I will be discussing the process of shooting outdoor photography in manual mode on your DSLR. I will start with explaining picking a location and time, switching to manual mode, explaining format of shooting, the shooting process, and I will end with a little bit about taking that photo into post-production, i.e. Photoshop. This right here is my tool of choice. As you can see, it is a Nikon. You know, there's two people in the world, Nikon and Canon users. There are a couple of other people, but no one cares about them. That's rude, sorry. But yeah, it's a Nikon D7100. It really doesn't matter what tool you decide to use or what camera you decide to use. All of the functions are pretty much the same. The settings are pretty much the same. The only difference is the location of the settings. So the first thing I want to talk about is picking location and time. Just for learning purposes and because you're a beginner, you should pick somewhere probably that you're familiar with, and also somewhere that gets really good lighting before 12 noon or after 5 p.m. As another photographer, Anthony Hinks once said, with sleepy eyes and a sleepy lens, it's time to breakfast as the nighttime ends. So the first thing you want to do after choosing your location, and when you get there and you're ready to set up, after you get your camera turned on and everything, you have these settings here, right there at the top. Now, A is probably where you are, which is automatic. M is where you want to be. If you have a Nikon, they have this little button here you have to press in order to turn it. The first setting I want to talk about is the memory card setting. Pretty much talking about the roles of the different memory cards. They have overflow, backup, and then they have slot 1, and this is only if your camera has 2 slots. It might just have 1, but mine has 2, and the first slot shoots in RAW. So other than overflow and backup, when you have 2 cards, you have the choice to shoot in RAW on the first card and shoot in JPEG on the second card, or you can do 2 RAWs, you can do 2 JPEGs, but for the sake of this video and for the sake of your editing that you're gonna have to do in post, you wanna make sure that's set to RAW. So then after you choose that, you wanna go down to image quality. And you click on it, it gives you a lot of different options here. And some of those options are for just like, say you don't want to do a backup for your shots. Once you've done that, it's time to start looking at how you want to set up your shot. So as far as lighting is concerned, because we're shooting outside, your main lighting source will be the sun. You want to make sure you're well aware of where the sun is at the time, which is why you shoot before 12 or after 5. And you want to make sure that the lighting is either coming from an angle like here, or you want to make sure it's coming from behind you and going towards the subject. So the second variable for shooting I want to talk about is aperture. So aperture is better known as the f-stop, and pretty much it's the hole at the center of your camera. And when you're adjusting that, it's pretty much adjusting how much light goes into the actual camera. Next is shutter speed. And shutter speed pretty much dictates how long the shutter stays open or how long light is allowed into the camera. So you have the f-stop, which is how much light is actually allowed into the camera. But then you have the shutter speed, which controls the time. So the shutter speed can go up really high. It depends. You don't want it too high, because the whole point of me telling you all of these things about these different elements is because you have to keep these elements balanced in order to get the result that you want. The next variable is ISO. ISO is pretty much your camera's sensitivity to light. The lower the ISO number, the more light is needed to get good exposure on your photos. As you can tell, most of these things really have to do with light and being able to control it within the camera. And as I said before, you really just want to keep these things balanced. Next, all you have to do is shoot. So after you shoot your photos, it's time to take it into post-production, which means you need some type of software. That can be Photoshop, which is my personal favorite. Once you get it into Photoshop, the first thing that's gonna pop up is a camera raw menu with your photo in it. Right there, you can adjust a lot of different things like the white balance, exposure, saturation, contrast. There's a whole bunch of different attributes that you can change as far as the photo is concerned. That is something I like to utilize. This only works when you have shot in RAW. If you don't shoot in RAW, you can't do this. Right now, I feel like photographers don't even really have to edit anymore for real. Like, they have so many presets. I would say research some presets that you want to, try out or whatever. So once you finish editing, you want to save your photo. I personally like to save my photo in JPEG and in PNG. So you've learned today how to pick a location and time, switch your camera to manual, choose a format, the variables that create a perfect environment to shoot, and a little bit about post software like Photoshop. So now you have the tools to at least get started and begin your photography journey. And then one day, you too could create a photo that evokes emotion in other people. Thank you.